Devin, over to you.
Thanks. Glad to be here. So my talk is titled Building Open Economies for NFTs. And I just wanted to start with a quote that someone told me very early on when I started getting interested in blockchain, which is that we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run. So people are a bit impatient, right? They're constantly overestimating how fast things will happen, but then it's really hard for us to often see these big trends and how impactful they can be. I think very few people imagine that the web would lead to a company like Google becoming such a valuable company by providing discovery for the web. So I think how this applies to the NFT space is a lot of people, actually we just saw a presentation on the numbers for NFTs, and this actually causes a lot of people to leave the space. I actually have friends who started getting interested in blockchain who are developers, but they said there are too few users here, the throughput is too low, the user experiences are terrible, and you can make all of these very valid criticisms about NFTs, but really what you're overlooking is that while things in the short term might feel a little uneasy and slow, the potential is much bigger than what anyone can foresee. And I'll avoid making any long-term predictions about NFTs, but instead just focus on what have we learned over the last year in the NFT space. So for context, OpenSea is a general marketplace for non-fungible tokens, which gives us a unique perspective on the space. We basically see every non-fungible token project that comes online, and we've seen what works and what doesn't. By the numbers, we've seen 1.5 million collectibles. We've seen over 100 different types of reputable NFT projects, and then on our exchange alone, we've had 7,000 ETH worth of NFTs traded. So this is kind of a recap from the previous presentation, but you can see that we're in a experimental phase. So this is the gross merchandise volume in ETH of NFTs. You can see that there was a massive bubble around CryptoKitties time, and now we're in this sort of steady experimental growth phase, and things are early again, basically. Most activity is in gaming. And it's really as was talked about in the previous presentation, it's really the digitally native utility in games that's driving early adopters to get interested in NFTs. I'll skip this because the previous presentation really talked about stats. So I think a really interesting learning for me, having worked in the space a bit, is the recognition that we've had digital assets for a long time. We've had non-fungible digital assets, in fact, for a very long time. But the composition of these digital assets has a very particular stack associated with it. So this is kind of a diagram of what a traditional digital asset in a game might look like. So think of this as Farmville, right? You have your user authentication system, you have the items in the game, the logic of the game, and then if there's an in-game marketplace, these things are fully vertically integrated digital experiences. Everything is bundled together. So these are what traditional digital assets look like. And so what does the blockchain actually change? Because we've actually had digital assets for a long time, so what's new about NFTs? So NFTs say, okay, instead of having the items and the core logic on a server, let's put them on a shared distributed ledger known as a blockchain, and let's start unbundling some of these pieces. So instead of a user authenticating with a username and password, maybe there still is a username and password, but the underlying way that a user owns these items in a game is through a wallet, right, an address. And then the items and the logic are now on a blockchain as well, so you can have other experiences interacting with them. So if you think of this as the CryptoKitties stack, you have things like kitty hats and kitty race that can interact with the items. And most excitingly for us, what we think of as one of the first interesting pieces of the stack is the fact that you can have a general marketplace for these items that exists outside of the game. And so OpenSea was kind of founded with that idea that you could build a generic marketplace that would scale across many different types of NFTs. So on sort of each layer of the stack, we're seeing rapid improvement. So on the user auth, the wallets layer of the stack, we have a bunch of new entrants to the space that are sort of turning the user experience from a MetaMask developer focused experience to a user experience that is for regular mainstream consumers. So that's on the left there is the MetaMask signature request, which is sort of unintelligible to an average user, and then these are the new entrants in the space. Game interoperability, sort of that, if I go back here, the second layer of the stack is early but promising. So this is a Gods Unchained kitty statue and a CryptoKitty bundled together on sale. So this was an experiment with Gods Unchained, a card game where they created assets inside of the game when you owned a CryptoKitty. So on the top of the stack in terms of marketplaces, the new reality is that marketplaces are instantaneous. So the moment you have an ERC 721, it's freely buyable, sellable, biddable, and bundleable. And this is actually, we've noticed that this is one of the magic moments for developers. The fact that they can deploy an asset on the Ethereum network and instantly have a storefront for it. That's really what gets developers excited about the space and sort of ingrains this idea that these assets are now interoperable with a number of different platforms. These marketplaces can be infinitely customizable. This is a marketplace that was built using OpenSea.js and basically looks and feels like an in-game marketplace, but is also natively available on OpenSea. And then this is what it looks like to actually auction an item, right? So the moment you have one of these items, you can auction it in the same way that you'd auction a physical item on eBay. You could sell it at a set price, you could sell it to the highest bidder, you could bundle a bunch of them together. The options are kind of limitless. The other interesting that happens is there arise these speculative markets even before the game has launched. So this is a game called Crypto Space Commanders, and this game has really just the items. There's no gameplay available, but already people are starting to speculate on what they might be worth and post them in a marketplace. Interestingly enough, this still allows for controls of the original project developer. So with Gods Unchained, a new card game, they decided that they would lock down transferability of these items, and you can see that there's an error message when you actually try to buy this, but you can still list it for sale. The most exciting piece of this, we think, is the opportunity for symbiosis between marketplaces and games. So in centralized games, there have been a few third-party marketplaces for things like Steam games, and there are also people who try to sell their Fortnite account on eBay. But these have always been very parasitic to the original game. Games want to lock down their economy. They don't want people buying and selling things for cash. Here in blockchain, what's interesting is that the marketplace and the trading of items is a lot more native. So you could actually create a marketplace where the fees on secondary sales are split between the marketplace service and the game itself, which is the model that we're trying to pioneer at OpenSea. We also have a new set of market participants. So this is a Discord user who's asking what might we expect for the price of a Genesis land? When will it hit OpenSea? Which is kind of this idea that not only gamers are going to be playing these things, but also people who just want to speculate on the price of assets. And this is kind of an emerging group of users who intersect between gamers and crypto adopters. So I'm running out of time, and I'll skip through the rest of my slides because I made way too many slides. But I just wanted to say, I think what's exciting is that we've come a really long way since CryptoKitties launched. I was remembering about a year ago, I was trying to figure out whether I could even use CryptoKitties on my mobile device. And there was this app called Toshi, which is an early version of Coinbase wallet. And it was even unclear like how it would work. I think I tried to buy a CryptoKitty, it completely bugged out. And so it's just exciting that the space has progressed quite a lot over the last year, and I think we have a lot of room to grow. So again, working on OpenSea, would love to chat if you're building NFT projects. Thanks so much.